It's New Year's time, and this is good because my guest is singer, songwriter, and producer Dave Damiani, who will be performing New Year's Eve countdown December 31st at Vic's Las Vegas. For more information, go to vicslasvegas.com. And for everything about Dave Damiani, you can go to davedamiani.com and you can follow him on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ira. I'm excited to come out to Vegas and see you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. This is the first time you've performed for New Year's Eve in Las Vegas?
I did a couple years back. My friend had a place at the SLS called the Sayers Club, and we performed there. My friend Jason Scopa and I did a show at the Cannery early, and then we went there late. But yeah, I've done New Year's Eve one time before, but not ever at a place like Vic's. I mean, Vic's is just the most amazing jazz club in the country. I mean, it is really spectacular. They just did an incredible job, and I'm blown away by it, really. I mean, it's fantastic.
That raises a good question I've been meaning to ask you is why jazz for you as opposed to pop or classical or blues or anything else? Why particularly jazz? Not that you exclude any of that, but you focus on jazz. Why is that?
I don't know. I was out here in Los Angeles. I'm in Palm Springs right now. I had a show last night at the Ritz-Carlton for Frank Sinatra's 108th birthday. But I was, in Los Angeles, kind of like working as like trying to get into entertainment, doing some acting, some writing, and I got a job briefly at this Italian restaurant called Michelli's, which is the oldest Italian restaurant in Los Angeles. It was from 1949.
That is
And
old. Yeah.
yeah, they had singing waiters in there, and they were all singing like American songbook standards and like Broadway tunes. And to be honest with you, I was always a huge fan of. I talked about this. Harry Connick Jr. when he came out with the when Harry Met Sally soundtrack. It was like I think it was like '88 or '87, and Rob Reiner had hired him to do that. And I was a huge fan of that movie, but I always became a fan of Harry Connick Jr. He was the person that really turned me on to this music, and through him, I discovered Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Chet Baker, and then people like Buddy Greco and Frankie Randall, and I mean just Sammy Davis Jr. and Bobby Darin, and I kind of discovered this music, and then I don't know, I just kind of felt like I could sing it. I kind of felt like I could tell the stories, and I really like this genre of music where you had the classic songwriters and I've written some pop tunes and I've done some things with like I play a little piano. I had a wedding band. We did some stuff years ago where we would go and play pop tunes and I would sing a couple of them. But the American Songbook and the standards and jazz, for whatever reason, kind of spoke to me, and I went kind of like into like this trance with it, and just kept it going. And I guess I've been doing it now for 20 years. It doesn't feel like it, but I have.
It is amazing. You also were involved at Charlie O's Jazz Club in Valley
As a
Village.
matter of fact, I'm wearing the sweatshirt right now.
For those who are watching, yeah, you can see it. That's great.
Charlie O's Jazz Club was a jazz club in Los Angeles from around 1999 to about 2008 or nine. And Charlie was he opened this club just because he loved musicians, very similar to the Loudons. They love jazz. They did this because they love jazz, and they have the best people playing there. I'm honored and humbled to be asked to play their New Year's Eve. But Charlie had people like John Hurd on bass and Roy McCurdy on drums, and Ernie McDaniel playing with Earl Palmer, who's the legendary drummer from the Wrecking Crew. I mean, Carol Kay would come in on bass. Lou Rawls would sit in. Richie Cole, Pete and Connie Condoli, Teddy Edwards, Plas Johnson. I had no idea who these people were when I was learning about jazz. And basically, I was working at this jazz club. I worked 5 nights a week behind the bar and working there. And then having had a little job at Michelli's, I was like, what is going on? Am I supposed to be, is God telling me something? I mean, are they saying, hey, yo, man, this is what's up for you? And ever since I started just kind of focusing on that, I mean, I went back to school, but the Charlie O's Jazz Club was like an education. I listened to jazz 3-4 hours a night every night for 3 years. So I
Well,
mean,
you skipped over it, but I think it's important for people to know that you didn't just go back to school. You received a master's degree in commercial music.
yeah, I got a master's degree in commercial music. I went back, I learned how to play piano, and I learned how to arrange, and I kind of learned how to, you know, like I said, they used to kind of make fun of the singers when I was working at the jazz club. The musicians would come over in the corner, and I'd get them a drink, and they'd say, "Oh my God, what do you call? How do you know when a female singer is at your front door?" And I said, "Well, she doesn't have a key, and she doesn't know how to come in, because when you don't know the key of your song that you're singing, or you don't know when the introduction's done to come in, these are things that you learn as a musician." And they used to joke about it. They used to razz these singers, guys and girls. They used to make fun of them if they didn't really have their, if they weren't professional, if they didn't really have their technique, they didn't really understand the basics of singing. Like, if you were going to show up at a job, as a contractor, and you didn't have a ladder or a hammer, so they would tease them. And I said, man, I never want to be like that as a singer. I want to go back, and I want to learn at least enough piano to sit and learn a song, at least enough piano to sit and say, wow, I like this introduction here. Let me see if I can play something here that I would like to come in on, or let me try this. This sound really nice with this song against these chords, against this melody. And having done that, over the course of, just sitting at the piano at the jazz club, I went back to school, and I said, worst case scenario, I'll become a music teacher. I'll go teach at a high school or a grammar school. And I never had to do that. Not that it's a bad thing, but I, I think as I'm getting older now, I think maybe at some point I might, go maybe look into possibly putting together a jazz program at a little school or something, because I
I
really
think
love.
it's a great idea.
Well, I
Absolutely.
love what the guys were doing in Las Vegas. I know I don't know if Kenny Rampton and Dave Loeb and Gary Cordell and these guys that are involved with the Joy Jazz Outreach Initiative. With Wynton Marsalis is on the chair and Jonathan Carant, but they have a really great thing that they're doing with this big band, educating kids, getting them lessons. And I want to get involved with these guys. I did a couple shows with them, but I really love them, and they're really sweet and great musicians in Las Vegas. So.
No, I think that's a great idea for you because you are so versatile in the sense I introduced you as singer, songwriter, and that's important because you're involved in a lot of elements there. When you were introduced to jazz initially, was there one particular performer that spoke to you as opposed to there's so many greats obviously in
So
jazz?
it sounds crazy. Even before I even got a job at the jazz club, I was at a record store in Los Angeles when they actually had records and CDs. And this is probably, I'd say, 1998 or 99, and I heard this piano playing in the background. I was like, wow, this is such a cool album. And I kind of like hung out in the store, and it was an album by Thelonious Monk, and it was called Underground. And John Hendricks was singing a track on it, and I bought the album and I played it nonstop. And then a couple years later, because I was listening to Sinatra and Dean Martin, I discovered Chet Baker. And when I heard him play trumpet and sing, and I was like, is this a guy or a girl? I couldn't tell from his voice. I mean, it was very like soft, but it was so cool and kind of haunting. And I started taking vocal lessons, and I started, seeing that there's other ways that you can, you know, but I think a lot of Chet Baker. I listened to that Chet Baker Sings album 1,000 times. I listened to Thelonious Monk Underground 1,000 times. I really got into Bill Evans. I loved Bill Evans' Waltz for Debbie. I loved anything that Wynton Kelly played on. I mean, there was some great records that he did with Miles Davis, and there was some stuff that he did with Hank Mobley, Soul Station. I love that album, and a lot of the guys who, I just you kind of learn that the whole thing about the vocabulary. There's a vocabulary in jazz where these guys play. Like I never like became a masterful soloist, but I totally know, when I hear a great solo, and I know, but that hasn't been my thing's just been kind of like singing the song, maybe coming at it from a little different angle on the arrangement, and being, you know, listen to the diction. People used to talk about diction, about, make sure that you are able to hear the word, make sure that your enunciation is correct. If you listen to Nat King Cole or Frank Sinatra, they learned from a guy named Dick Hames. And I listened to a lot of Mabel Mercer and Bobby Short. They made sure that you could hear the lyric of the song, that you actually knew. And great soloists, saxophone soloists, have told me, and trumpet soloists, I always learn the lyric before I play the melody. Why? Well, because wouldn't you want to know what the song's about, even if you're playing it instrumental? Because people are singing it in their head. So just like little
Sinatra,
stuff like
Sinatra
that.
was, yeah, Sinatra was very big on the lyrics, and he also attributed his phrasing to Mabel Mercer as well.
Right, right. So I had a vocal teacher when I first got to LA. He pushed me to go back to school. Actually, this guy named Deanie Clark, and I used to go to his house, and we would listen to Mabel Mercer and Bobby Short and Johnny Hartman. He loved Johnny Hartman. He loved Joe Williams. Joe Williams was a bartender until he was 40 years old. Never started singing until he was almost 40 years old. I mean, you're talking about people who there was a certain pedagogy. There was a certain um, systematic approach to learning a song and understanding that you could learn the melody and always sing it through the first time the way it's supposed to be sung, and then if you want to take a liberty, do that the second time around. But you always want to introduce the song and sing it, and pay homage to the songwriters, of course.
I get the feeling that you are, and I've said this to certain guests over the years, I get the feeling you're an old soul.
I think so. I think I am. I don't really. When you said like about doing pop music and stuff, honestly, I really can't stand a lot of it. I mean, every once in a while, I hear a song that I'm like, wow, that's really a well written song. There's a song that John Mayer wrote. I don't know, 15 years ago now, called "Daughters." I just think it's a fantastically well written song. There's a song that Justin Bieber wrote that I love, "Love Yourself," which is kind of like a pop tune, but I just think it's a fantastic song. Every once in a while, there's great songs that are written, but most of them are kind of like, I don't know, not I just don't understand. I went to a place in Los Angeles where they used to have a jazz trio, and I walked in and they had a girl singing with a computer hitting the space bar, and the guy was playing along to a track, and the drummer just had a hi-hat and he's just playing on the hi-hat, but there's a full drum set. So these people are taking a real easy way, cheap way out of,
Right.
my thing was, if you only have a bass player and it's you and I've done gigs with just me and a bass player. The bass player plays the bass note and I sing the melody, and it's really cool. It's called a cordless trio. You can use a saxophone as well with a vocalist and a bass player, but you make the most of whatever you have. And that was what I was raised on, and learning from these old school guys at the jazz club. If I hadn't done that, I don't know if I would have ever thought about it this way.
I want to talk to you about what you're going to be doing New Year's Eve at Vic's, but before that, I was listening to you, and your voice sounds closer and closer to a guy who you're friends with, and that is Joe Piscopo.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm listening, and you've got a little bit of the same cadence or rhythm as Joe does. Joe was on my old show back at the Las Vegas Hilton. He was great. There's something about him that is endearing and very contagious as far as his enthusiasm. And I know that you've appeared on his radio show once or twice or more than once.
I recorded a song with him. We
Yeah,
did
Christmas
Santa
song
Claus is
too.
Coming to Town, and I'm very good friends with Joe. In fact, I just called him this morning. His mother passed away yesterday, so
Mhm.
sending out our thoughts and prayers to them. I mean, I know he's very close with his mom, but a really great guy. He was, Frank loved him. He did the whole thing for SNL. He got the gig pretty much doing the Frank Sinatra impersonation. He told me when
Right.
he went in, and he's really very talented guy. He plays the drums, he plays the piano a little bit, he plays the saxophone, he
He
plays the
gets
flute,
married all
plays a
the
little guitar.
time, the whole
Yeah,
thing, right?
he's a great showman, and honestly a great host. And yeah, I appreciate that because I like Joe a lot. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. And there's another thing about you that people don't know, which is baseball that you're
Yeah, I
in.
played baseball in high school and a little bit in college, and I actually played when I was a junior, and what was I? I was a senior in high school, and we played Miami Westminster, and I'm the same age as Alex Rodriguez. I'm a year older, so we played against each other in high school. I was a catcher for Spanish River High School, and we played against them, and we actually beat them 6-5. But he was the shortstop, and
You remember the
he was a
score. I like
phenom. He was a phenom, and it was kind of weird. I didn't really know, no, we didn't. I didn't know at the time that he was going to turn out to be what he turned out to be. But there was a lot of great ball players when I went to high school in Florida, and I played against a lot of guys. A guy named Chris Steins who wound up playing for Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, and there was a lot of great ball players.
But you also play baseball though with more recently in the sense of a league that you guys have.
I still play in this MSBL. It's like a
Yeah.
men's senior baseball league, and we actually play real fast pitch baseball, and we do it with We do it with there. I think you got to be like 40 or over, but it's great. I've been playing with these guys for a while. I actually dislocated my shoulder, and I have a $15,000 hospital bill to prove it. But it was pretty awesome. I love it. I'll keep playing until I can't anymore.
I could see you standing on stage singing with a broken arm. You can still pull it
Yeah,
off.
I did it.
Yeah.
I had to do it. I had a sling for a while, so. But I'm telling you, the injuries are hard. Like it's a little like they asked me because I was a catcher, so they asked me to. I said I'll play, but I really don't want to catch. But I had to go and catch because we needed a catcher for this game, and like I caught like a 9 inning game, and I'm still. This was a couple weeks ago. My legs still. I mean, it's not the same when you're 19, 20,
Right,
or
exactly.
it's just
Yeah,
not.
exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about your upcoming appearance. Again, it's New Year's Eve countdown at VIX, December 31st. And it's not just and it's not just Dave Damiani. There's also a lot of other people involved. And if you want to
Well,
talk about some of those people, I'm happy to have you share their
yeah,
names.
we have an incredible band for New Year's Eve. We have on drums a guy who worked on the "Come Fly Away" tour, the Sinatra, where they played all the Sinatra tunes, and he was a fantastic drummer, super swinging. His name is Paul Ringenbach. He's one of the best drummers in hands down in Vegas. On bass is one of my dearest friends for over 20 years. He played with Michael Bublé, and he also is the current musical director for Steve Tyrell. But Steve's not playing this year because he's been, struggling with some health issues.
Mhm.
He got sick, and so I got Lyman Medeiros on bass, who's the best, and then on piano, a gentleman by the name of Joey Singer, who everybody in Vegas knows. He's been with Dennis Bono for I don't know 20 years, doing the Dennis Bono show. He played with, he played with everybody, every name that you could think of. Joey has played. He was one of the people that did Showstoppers. Debbie Reynolds. He's just been a musical director for some of the greatest people in town. Um, Clint Holmes he worked with, and
Mhm.
I mean every local people. Also, I have a friend coming to play trumpet, who was one of the great. He's one of the greatest soloists in the world. He's from Juilliard Music School, but that's years ago. He played with the Eagles. He toured with Don Henley and the Eagles, and now he's going to be in Vegas. So he says, "Man, I'm going to come play with you guys." His name is Mike Catone, and if you love jazz trumpet, and I'm basically going to be doing standards. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to tell some jokes, and it's going to be like an old school supper club show. If you want to go out on New Year's and you want to go out on a nice date, you can even come to the early seating and enjoy dinner, and then go out afterwards and party. But we're going to have a fun time, but we're going to have an adult time. We're not going to do. It's not going to be like a mess, and I imagine that it's going to be pretty crowded, but I don't think it's going to be like I've been down on the strip before on New Year's Eve, and it's a zoo. It's a zoo. So where Vix is, and where it is perfect if you just want to have a nice night, and the food is fantastic, and God bless the Loudons for really creating one of the greatest spots anywhere.
It's great to see jazz having a resurgence, especially in the downtown area. There's jazz at the Smith Center a lot, but just to have a club devoted to it, which is right next to the Smith Center where Vix
Yeah,
is.
so I think I'm coming out a little bit early. I'm going to go on the 28th to see my friend Benny Benack, one of the great trumpet player singers. He's
Well,
going to be at
Benny
Vix.
was at Vix, and Benny was on my show not that long ago when he was last. Yeah.
He's extraordinary, and he's one of my dear friends, and I love the guy. And I'm gonna hang with him on the 28th. I'll probably do a song or something, go talk about the show, and then on the 29th, I don't know what the plan is, but on the 30th, I think I might go see Seth MacFarlane at the Smith Center, who's going to be there performing with the orchestra. And then on the 31st, I have Vix. So I'm looking forward to 2 or 3 nights of like just like great jazz and hanging out with my friends, and a lot of my LA friends are playing with Seth MacFarlane. So that should be really really fun.
I like that. Tell us a little bit about the jazz community itself, because it seems to be a very well connected fraternity or sorority or a combination thereof. In other words, all of you in the jazz community performers, singers, musicians, they all seem to know each other. Is that fair, or mostly fair, or? What
I
would you
mean, I mean, like honestly, at this stage of my career, if I haven't heard of somebody, then there's something weird. Because
say?
if I'm going to a city, like I also, in addition to being, singing and producing and doing and songwriting, I also had a business I still do for a while called No Vacancy Entertainment, where I book musicians for like private events and hotels, and I call musicians every day. Like I probably employ 15, 20 people a day, playing at different gigs, doing different things. Like this hotel needs a duo, a piano player and a bassist. And over the course of the years, if you know somebody from Los Angeles and you say, you know Dave Damiani, if they've been around, we've definitely worked together or done a gig for one another. And in the process of doing that, all other musicians, they also find jobs that people say, hey, can you get me a band for this? Can you get me a band for that? I need a piano player. Oh, let me call this person. Let me call that person. So like you go on your phone and I type in piano, and there's like 50 names of people that like I would call from Los Angeles. There's 50 people that I would call on bass. There's 30 people that play trumpet. So when you like do it that much, and then I mean I don't know, maybe I've done 3,000 4,000 gigs in my life. So like you play with these people, like there's definitely my friend Alex that he's playing with Benny on the 28th. We must have done 1,000 gigs in a 3 4 year span. We were doing 5 6 sometimes 7 gigs a week. So it's you become
Wow.
friends with people, you become family with them, you ride in cars to the gig for 2 hours, and they tell you about the gig they had the night before, and they say, oh, this guy, man, he was great, or this guy, man, not so great. So you kind of make a list of people that you want to call.
So there's no vacancy at Dave Damiani's organization. There's
Well,
always
I mean,
always
actually, there
room.
are always vacancies because we're always looking for more
You're
work.
right. It's the opposite. There's always a vacancy because you're using. Yeah, you're always looking
Yeah,
at
we're trying to fill
multiple.
the vacancies. That's what. But yeah, I mean, you always want to, and COVID came and really wiped us out. I mean, I had to do a lot of things to kind of make ends meet because my whole business was based upon me performing and other people performing, and then there was no more hotels and there was no more, jazz clubs, and there was no more. So, you know, I mean, like, I've worked with Piscopo. I've gotten gigs I worked with Bobby Rydell. I worked with Renee Olstead a couple times. I think you were interviewed us for the Smith Center before. Um, I've done something with Jane Monheit. George Benson did the Sinatra 100. Sal the Voice Valentinetti from America's Got Talent. Landau Murphy Jr., winner of America's Got Talent. Haley Reinhart. All these people I've worked with over the years, and we go to Florida. We have to have a band. So what do? I call a couple people I know in Florida. Next thing you know, anytime I go to Florida, it's too hard to travel. It's too expensive to travel with,
Right.
10 people. So I got to hire them there, do a rehearsal, and then boom, we do the show the next night. It always works out.
So do they drive to the hotel? For example, if you go to Florida and you set up a band, are they allowed to stay at the hotel overnight, or is it because they're local, they just drive to the event,
They
rehearse?
just drive home. I mean, like I try and cut the costs. Like the same
Right.
thing like in New York City. Like how are you going to put up 10 people in New York City? You're not.
Yeah.
The gig's got to pay $25,000 by the time you pay for flights, and
Yeah.
if you, let's say somebody's got 8,000, you got to figure out a way to make that happen. Within the parameters of
Right.
if you can make it happen, if it makes sense. But
Sure.
well, I'm always being smart and cautious about how to still get my name out there, still perform, and do it where it's sustainable. And that's the whole thing with music. Like it's an amenity. It's an amenity. Like we can live without a live band. We can't live without water.
Right. Or
We
food. All right.
or
Yeah.
food or food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one of your songs. I was listening to it the other day. What I liked about it, it was "That's All," and that's usually sung. Yours was up tempo, which is the first time I've heard it that way, and it was really interesting because I didn't think I would like an up tempo version of "That's All." I know we're changing subjects, but the thought occurred to me, and you were doing it as an up tempo, but it was great because it was not what I expected. I expected something that wouldn't work as well as the usual tempo for "That's All." How did you decide to do that song that way?
My moniker has been bending the standard. So I take the standards and we do bending the standard. We take like a different bass line, or we take a different approach to the song, because why do it like everybody else? Michael Bublé did it exactly like Mel Torme. I mean, Mel Torme did it very similar to Frank Sinatra. I mean, like, so like, why do we need another version of That's All that's the same? Why do people want to hear me do it to like a karaoke track. Let me create something. So, but it can't be forced either. You can't force an
Exactly. That's
arrangement,
my
force
point.
a concept.
It didn't sound forced. It sounded perfectly natural.
So we were like ending a show one night, and we were like boom boom ba-doom doom 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 ba-doom boom boom, and I was like, all right, let's do That's All. Let's do That's All to this. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, just just let do That's All. And then at the end of the show, I was like, that's all. Good night, y'all. That's all. It's time to go. Good. That's all. And we did a tag like that, and people really thought it was funny and cute. So we just kind of kept it, and then we added a big band arrangement to it, and then we recorded it on the album, Bending the Standard In. And then, I've just been, you know, every song that I do, that I present, I try and present it in a way that's never been presented before, but I don't try and turn it on its head. That would be breaking the standard. There's a great movie with Alan Alda, and Woody. It's a Woody Allen film called Crimes and Misdemeanors. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
I haven't. I forget how I forget the
one of the great
format.
movies of all time. One
I
of the
have.
top five movies of
It's
all time.
about 25 years old, maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Martin Landau is in there. He plays the doctor, but Alan Alda plays a documentary filmmaker, and he's kind of a goofball. He's kind of like a very pompous guy, but he goes, if you bend it, it's funny. If you break it, it's not funny. It's like, if you bend it, it's funny. If you break it, it's not funny. So I kind of like, as silly as it was, I've heard people do arrangements that are so far away from
Mhm.
the original song that you're just like, oh my God, like just write your own song. It's not even close to, So I try and keep it close enough where there's some sort of like recollection of the song, but I try then to put my spin on it.
Do you get good feedback from fellow musicians and songwriters and others when they hear what you do with some of the standards? Because sometimes they're revered and they don't want anybody messing with them. But as you said, you're bending, you're not breaking. And
One time I did a party for somebody, and this woman came up to me and she goes, "That's all supposed to be a ballad. That's a lovely song, and I've never heard it done like that. And that I don't know of how I feel about it." But that was the only time I really had anyone upset about it. But we started doing this fun stuff like I took the song that the Tender Trap, and we rewrote the lyrics for the Tinder app. And I took Destination Moon, and I kind of maybe changed, made a metaphor about the rocket ship and made it like a playful joke. But people have loved it, and they've caught on, and I've been hired to produce many artists because of my thinking out of the box. I mean, who wants to see somebody just go like with the microphone and like there's no story or there's no personality? This music was built on guys. I talked to a good friend of mine. I said, "What do you think it was about Frank Sinatra that everybody likes so much?" And he goes, "Well, he was a great singer. Let's say that. But when he sang the songs, you had the feeling in the back of your head that if Frank wanted to kick your ass, he probably could." I think that there's some truth to that. I think that there's some truth that there's a little toughness about it. And that's kind of been I don't want to say I'm trying to be like Frank Sinatra. There'll never be another Frank Sinatra. But I've always tried to come at it with a little bit of approach like, hey, wow, you want to be a man's man, but you also want to kind of come at it and you want to arrange the songs that way. And I always thought about it like what's a good way to present it, like, and that it feels natural. You don't want to force it either. And when it's forced, it just, you could tell right away. You could tell.
Well, that's a great way to leave it. My guest is singer, songwriter, and producer Dave Damiani. He'll be performing New Year's Eve Countdown, December 31st at Vic's Las Vegas. For more information, go to vicslasvegas.com. And for everything about Dave Damiani, go to Dave Damiani. Say that 3 times real fast. DaveDamiani.com, and follow him on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And Dave, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, and I hope you guys have a fantastic holiday, and God bless you, and come and see me at Vic's on New Year's Eve, and really, we're going to have the time of our lives. So looking forward to 2024.
See you then.